Spine. A horror anthology. Episode 3. Larva bread. The bitch is at the door again, baying, crooning. It's all she ever does. In the bedroom's dark, Caleb wills himself deaf. Sweetheart? Sweetheart, are you in? Words as stale as they are saccharine, acidic, almost, scalding the soft pulp of his teeth, black as beetlebacks. He draws a nail across one in ploughman strokes, and feels enamel, clay-like, stick to the rags of the bed. He sucks it clean. Sweetheart? Just leave me alone. His thoughts come in slow, cold poisons. Caleb turns them from her to the small television set in the room's corner. He does not remember turning it on, but then neither does he recall ever turning it off. An advertisement for a fast food restaurant plays across the glass. Children with broad, grease-slicked smiles skitter and spit, fingers flecked with slate blue meats. The colours dance against the gloom. Caleb cannot be sure where they end and the migraines begin. I'm coming in, okay? The door creaks open. Ugly yellow stains grow fat and sopping where the light touches. His heart begins to race. At the door. You're supposed to leave dinner at the door. Mercifully, the tide slows. Only her head broaches the border, and even that is a shadow. I know, sweetheart, I know, but... She trails off. She's always doing that. It's one of the million habits she employs in order to drive him insane. Caleb shoots her a hideous glance and takes some small satisfaction when she starts. Your father will be home tonight. Maybe you could eat downstairs. With us. He does not drop his eyes. She meets them with a pale smile, half glimpsed through a veil of grey hair gone brittle and sour. Aged more than old, his mother is a small and cowed woman with thin, twitchy hands that pluck themselves to the quick. Something boils in him when he looks at her. At the door, he says, letting each syllable tick, tick, tick away. She bites her lip. When next she speaks, her teeth are pink to the root. Okay, sweetheart. Just a minute. She steps back into the hall. The dim tide draws in behind her, taking with it the smell of polyester and candles burned to the nub. There are minutes where the air is as still and as stale and as sweet as any he has ever tasted, but it always sours. It comes later than he expects and sooner than he hopes. The soft scuff of familiar feet, the clinking of steel on ceramic playing in tinny duet. A stink fills him, sausage, spitting fat and thick, creamy grease. You can taste their lukewarmth already. The footsteps stop. A silence follows them, deliberate and bulging with the unspoken, the unspeakable. He hears them anyway, the ghosts of sniping's past. I just think you could try. There's always If you would just... Instead there comes only a sigh, and a clattering as the plate comes to rest. The scuffing fades like hoar frost. When the only sound is the television's blare, Caleb walks to the door and sneaks a plate clear of its frame. He was right. 3 fat, grey fingers scab over the enamel. A mound of peas amass on their eastern flank, a dollop of mash encroaching from the south, all accosted by a siege of water-streaked cutlery. It turns his guts, even as his stomach roars demand. She waited. She waited until it was cold. He should send it spinning across the room, let her hear it shatter and stain. But he doesn't. Rather, he slumps atop his bed and begins to eat. It's slow going. The peas pop like hardened blisters, the mash tar thick. He tries a spoonful and shudders as it coagulates on his tongue. Bloody skip slough, he curses, before turning on the sausages. They are little better, their skins leathery and unyielding to the dull butter knife. He curses again and slams his fork into one. It gives way with a generous spatter of grease across his bedclothes. The smell of mulching pits fills the room. As he eats, he turns his gaze back to the television, where a nature doc has begun to play. Something to do with insects, a swarm of ants twitching like stippled tendons over logs and dead leaves. A small bird warbles beside them, its head cocks to and fro, dim and dark eyes reading the mass. Then it darts, plucks a beakful from the throng, and gulps them down. There is a flash of writhing legs in oak-brown pincers. Then comes the crunch of kindling in flame, and they are gone. Caleb watches, strangely rapt, as something changes in the swarm. The chitinous muscles go taut as each ant turns its vacant gaze to where the little bird skitters and feasts, its feathers staining pus yellow beneath trickling hemolymph. It does not see what Caleb sees from his omnipotent perch. It does not see the currents change. It picks another clump from the mass, bigger this time, but not all are caught. Several pull free of their siblings and scrabble their way from mass to beak to head. The bird twitches, flicking a few loose, but the rest only latch harder. Caleb mills a lump of gristle between his teeth as he watches one particularly determined specimen find an eye. Its jaws affix with a soft pop, and suddenly the twitches are spasms, so violent he can almost hear the crackling of hollow vertebrae. The bird flutters its wings, tries to rise, but too late, much too late. Already the swarm is thickening around its stick-thin legs, scissoring through blue feathers into pink flesh. It falls with a little trill of pure animal terror, and then it is swallowed. Damn, he mutters, raking another mouthful, as the bugs raise stray feathers like cold banners. He hardly tastes. The pork runs down his throat in a soft mire. Even the smell has waned. It is the texture that sets his guts to toiling, slick and gritty in equal measure, and it itches, God above it itches, like nettles and ulcers and all the other stinging things. Caleb dumps the mound he had been raising back to the plate and sucks the fork clean. Then, with a surgeon's hand, he levers it between his teeth until he feels cool steel beneath his tongue. and begins to scratch. His incisors are all but ruins and like to crumble if the prongs ring against them. So he is gentle, so very gentle, tilling the ache in his gums stroke by stroke. What has she put in these? He wonders, spitting a wad of saliva to the sheets. Inside, warm blood whirls, steaming quietly. Blood and flecks of sausage, and something else. He frowns, dark flecks speckle the pink. He leans closer, feeling all the while for the signs of new shavings jostled loose. But no, his teeth are intact insofar as they can be. What is that, pepper? She spiced these goddamn things for once? Oh, he gives a sudden, barking cry of disgust. Within the rum-red spittle, parts twitch and shudder. Stray legs and antennae, carapaces cracked like clamshells. Small, oaken heads with jaws still a scissor. Mangled, insectile bodies, flickering with lives freshly taken. Jesus! Caleb cries, a hand rising to his mouth. Then he thinks better, and snatches a quarter cup of water stewing on his desk from who knows how many nights ago. Knocking it back like brandy, he rinses from cheek to tonsil, before spitting back into the glass and raising it to the light. It is shadowed with new blood, spittle thickening the liquid to curds. Even still, can just about make out brown shapes kicking to the surface. The glass falls from his hand. He is retching before it hits the floor, sending the few live ants languishing across the carpet. That cow! He rasps through Bile's slick beard. That bloody cow! His fingers clench and loose, rage and disgust playing in gooseflesh braille across his bare arms. In his mind's eye he sees her, running a knife along a soft pink underbelly, hollowing sausage flesh, pressing scuttling things into the space left behind. She wants me out. She wants me gone. She wants me with the bugs and the worms. He stands, sending the meal's remains to join the drowned and the dying, and storms to the door. He hopes she can hear him. He hopes she's afraid. Caleb finds his mother worrying her nails against a countertop stain. Flakes of old coffee and older wood fall like fresh snow. Mahogany screams. The sound fills his skull with nesting cicadas. Where did you get them? She flinches. Her nail gives a final, sharp rasp as she turns. Oh, the sausages. At the butcher's, do you like them? I can get them again if you... Did you think I wouldn't notice? Were you at the keyhole giggling like a schoolgirl? Well, I choked down a colony. What did you want me to see? Sweetheart, I don't understand. Did you want me to feel them wriggle and worm? She gives no answer. Her face lifts into a weak smile, hoping that by the time it forms she will get the joke. It doesn't take, falling again to that familiar, placid, placating mask. The usual bloody masks. Seeing them, his heart simmers. So where? The playground? The garden? Ordered them online? That would be just like you, you bloody, lazy, stupid. He chokes on his own fetid rage and hisses, pounding a fist against the wall. The room is spinning. He is so goddamn hungry. And all the while she can only look at him with that strange, lax smile beneath wavering, worried eyes. Caleb, what are you talking about? It's too much. Every word, every wrinkle that shapes them. She lies while he starves, driving him to the dirt, to the worms. His fist finds the wall again, sending a blaze through his knuckles. Whether the break is in the plaster or his hand matters little. I have to get out of here. He says something vile, what exactly he could never recall, and passes her by in a storm. Before she can think to follow, he is opening the front door and passing into the twilight. Anger only warms for so long, and Caleb is not dressed for the cold. He had not expected to leave his grotto for... well, he had not expected it. The wind blows in reed-thin strands that siphon heat and marrow, numbing the fingers like fishing line pulled taut. There's glass in his lungs, a crawling in his guts. He has forgotten just how hateful the world is. He shudders against it. The high street, he thinks, and takes the turn. He has not walked it for some time, but the route is etched into his plimsolls, and soon enough the breeze carries with it the unmistakable taste of oil and coinage. Drunkards and hens mill in a miasma around the Technicolor roads, fast foods flickering red and yellow from yawning glass mouths. Inside, gaggles eat as they are eaten. It turns his stomach even as it growls. Chips, Caleb decides, and begins to shuffle towards a familiar silhouette. Fries King, or King of Fries, one of those names as memorable as it is witty. That is to say, neither. The entrance gives a weak ring that is almost immediately drowned by the hinges' squeal, and a wall of smoke and scent meets him like a paddle. Grease and oil and sweat and steel, too solid to be appetizing, like huffing concrete. He would vomit if there were anything for his stomach to dredge. Large, and a battered sausage, he mutters to the broad, coarse man behind the counter. No, wait. 2. Wordless, the man begins his task. A scoop, glittering beneath the heat lamps, scissors through the golden ridges like liquid butter, cracking the golden shells to reveal their sweet, white creams. Vinegar browns the air, dark as ichor, toasting the sausage batter the color of the summer sun. An age passes as Caleb watches the food funneled from its bassinets to the white paper sheets, bound with such care. By the time the package is in his hands, it is already sodden, the bone white giving way to grey-green pocks, where the grease pools its worst. He has never been so hungry. Dinner, the teller grunts, already returning to his forge. Caleb thrusts a hand into his pocket and grabs a handful of something. Receipts and coppers, he suspects, but he scatters them across the counter all the same and is out the door before the man can discover just how short his change is. Back to the chill, Caleb clutches the parcel in his hands like a dying ember and huddles his way to a side street. He would prefer to retreat to his bed, but by now his father would be home. It doesn't bear thinking about. He finds a corner where the gutters run with mulch rather than students and tucks himself away. Old cold water leaches through the seat of his shorts, gravel nibbling at his bare skin like minnows. Above, the stars choke on mists, gemstones on the ocean floor. The steam of his meal soon joins them as he tears into the parchment like a wild cat to a fawn. Batter buttercups bloom. He grabs a handful, hardly feeling the blisters they raise, and gulps them down. The molten chips burst, dragging layer after layer of cheek and tongue with them as he swallows. The salt sows the furrows they leave, the pain a delicacy. This is it, he thinks, grasping the first of the sausages and cleaving it between his teeth. This is what I needed. And then comes the squirming. Caleb frowns. He is not sure what quite gives him pause. His mouth is numb with scalding, and he hardly feels the shower of starchy fluff as it tumbles down his throat. But maybe that's it. It isn't going down. Not all of it. He swallows hard. His throat grinds against itself, tectonic, sending shakes throughout his body. Most of the clump follows it, bulging its way down his chest, before coming to rest as a coal in the pit of his stomach. And yet there remains a wriggling. Caleb coughs. He snorts. He swallows and spits and gags. He curls his tongue to the soft palate and feels for the sticklers. All the while there is a pressing in his throat, a gentle undulation. Allergies, he thinks as he works a finger between his lips. That is the cheap crap they fry this stuff in. Scalping from the working man. Can't even... Something catches his nail and falls into his palm. Something stark. Something warm. Something fat. Something alive. Caleb lurches to his feet, sending the maggot to the weeds in a shower of chips and expletives. His hand finds his grease-stained lips and burrows, shoving his tongue aside as his fingers claw at the mound in his throat. They fall like sleet. The larvae heads bubble grotesquely, red and yellow, mandibles chittering beneath slate, thoughtless eyes. Their legs scrabble for purchase on his teeth as they fall, and so he bites, bursting their boil-like bodies into pulp before spitting them free. They taste of salt and vinegar. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, Caleb moans, the words a blur. He staggers from his corner, bleary-eyed and half-mad, and falls to his knees. One jars against a grate, a rusted iron thing with a gap-toothed smile, packed with filth. Water pools at its lips, swimming with mites and sticks. He doesn't care. Snatching more than cupping, he gulps hand over hand, until the flood has gone from lake to pond to dregs, and his mouth tastes only of mud. Filthy, filthy, filthy! Flies in his storeroom, maggots in his meat. The scum bring in their rot, putting it in our food, frying them plump and leaking and... But that doesn't make sense. Caleb stands, his chest tight, his head light. There's stardust behind his eyes as he staggers to the spot where his dinner landed. It's with the woodlice now, the dandelions all aglitter with spit and batter shavings. And the maggots, of course. Seeing them so stark against the dark stone fills his skull with briars, his teeth with needles. Filthy, scratchy. He picks up a discarded bottle. There are plenty to go around, and uses the neck to prod at the food's remains. There's a bog of the things congealing where he spat, and a few more cooking in the mass. But not enough. They were inside the chips, they had to be. There were too many for it not to be an infestation. Reluctantly, He plucks the furthest wedge he can from the grubs and splits it open. Nothing strange. He grabs another. Nothing. And another, and another. In each there is only the soft white innards, steaming in the twilight cold. No sign of rot or infection. Like they just... An awful thought occurs, but Caleb pushes it aside. He's starving. He needs to wash out the taste, fill his belly, forget the ants and the maggots and the mother and the man. Kicking the paper carcass aside, Caleb wavers his way out of the alley where moon has fallen and the crowds are out in force. For once he is grateful. It makes what comes next that much easier. He chooses his mark, a corner shop with one too many patrons and too few watchful eyes. He slinks in so much as he can and, while a clerk releases Captain Morgan to the charge of a boy with more acne scars than GCSEs, pockets the first sealed bag he sees. It is not hidden well, but no one looks too long or too hard. They never have. Caleb takes his prize to a small bench across the way and examines it. A bag of chicken-flavoured crisps shine a dull gold beneath the street lights. He turns it over, checks the date, the bulge that betrays the gases that keep the things light and crunchy. No perforations, no tears. He opens the bag, starting slightly at the pop it gives. The smell is all-encompassing, the scent of chemical meat, of faux flesh, of something live picked apart and reconstituted to the barest ash of its taste. His mouth waters. Even still, he takes a moment to ruffle through the ruffles like folio pages, checking for dark, scampering shapes. He finds none. Satisfied, he slips a crisp between his molars, letting it soak and crumble. A ritual. His mother always did the same. When the last of the thing has wasted away, he takes more, a handful this time, and crunches. Like glass they shatter. Starch stalactites, painful, good. The bag is plump, more so than he's ever seen, endless. Though his hand crusts and tongue burns, there is no sign of silver, only hand over hand of golden, toasted browns. He's drooling, he realizes. It's running in a viscous waterfall over cheek and chin. Between mouthfuls, he scrubs a palm across his face to clear it, before returning it to the bag. Only, what trickles in the gutters of his palm is not saliva. It is much too thick, much too yellow. His jaw slows. Oh God! For the first time he tastes the taste beneath the taste, beneath the chicken stink and carbon, the sourness that grows stronger with every crunch. And it isn't just a crunch, no, he fights to think of a word other than squelching. Please, no. And then he vomits. Great gussets, flame and formaldehyde, spitting like dragon's breath to the streets. The squeals of passers-by are drowned out by the screaming in his head and the hiss of the roaches that spatter from between his lips. Their bodies scarred with toothy indentations, weeping pus-yellow innards. It was clear they weren't in the bag. How could they have been in the bag? Bloody hell, mate, where have you been in it? Laughs a red-faced geezer, clutching a styrofoam box as he skips drunkenly over the ever-growing pond. Found the one place not cutting the kegs with piss. One pointing us their way. He laughs again, too far gone to be disgusted. From his hands, Donna's steam wafts. What roaches are intact enough to move are already scurrying towards it. Caleb beats them to it, snatching the box from the man's hands to a chorus of cursing. He shovels lamb and spice and whatever sickly sweet sauces drown them both. This time he hardly gets a swallow before the crawling begins, and what could only be earthworms, wet with fresh clod, are filling his cavities. This can't be happening. He doesn't get a chance to excavate. Without warning, the drunk's ham-hock fist arcs from the shadows and connects. His cheek sparks. The crack follows in thunder peals a half-second later. But that is a second too late. Caleb falls, and before head meets concrete, he is with the nightmares. The bitch is at the door again. In his head again. Knocking nails into his skull. No, not nails. Hurts too much. Something worse. He read once about a man who survived a railroad spike through his jaw. Yes, that seems more like it. Someone lost a spike in his face. Mum, probably. Be just like her. Mr. Moore, how are we doing this morning? A woman, but not his mother. Caleb finds that stranger than he should. He tries to grunt a reply, but the pain. His bones, white as phosphorus, burn cold. Oh dear, the voice tuts. Try not to move, love. You've a broken jaw. His eyes open and are greeted by the alkaline sting of a hospital ward. He's been flayed to the skin and seated upright beneath flimsy paper sheets, a draft creeping on spider legs up his bare neck. A woman flutters about him. She's fussing with some kind of wooden board attachment, wrestling it into an aluminium strut that arcs over his waist. I'm sorry, love, she grunts as the board clicks into place. You've woken up just in time for the unpleasant part. He's suddenly aware of a pressure in his nose. Not painful, at least not by comparison, but there is an undeniable weight to the bridge, an aching squeeze that leads down into his... No. He wants to scream it, but the pain swallows the sound. He wants to bat her away, but his fingers are deaf to his pleas. He wants to kick and claw as she readies the feeding, prepares the pump that will fill his guts with earwigs and dragonflies and termites and ticks and fat, needle-nosed mosquitoes that will suckle at his intestines and grow fatter still until he is drowning in his own stolen blood. Now this might feel a bit strange, so bear with me, okay? Just relax. But Caleb does not. He strains against himself, his muscle bonds and tendon shackles. He fights to chew out the plastic tube that has been fed through his sinuses to dangle like a second uvula. Move. And something gives. The blood is flowing again, and some feeling returns to his right bicep. Less than a quiver, but it is all he needs as the nurse reaches closer. Move! He swings. His hand is still limp, but that lends it a hideous force as it flicks like a bullwhip at the underside of the nurse's temple. A heady thock sound rings through the ward as it connects, and she wavers, totters. Her eyes, blue shadows beneath swaying lamplight, twitch and shudder. Then she falls. Caleb has no time for shame. With still, numb fingers he bats at his face. A few blows land across his swollen jaw with agony so intense he almost ceases to feel them, until finally his index hooks beneath the feeding tube. It's held in place with an adhesive tape, and takes a few seconds of sweat ease straining to yank free. The pain is hideous, chili pepper viscera, but the blood tastes of ecstasy. I didn't eat. The bugs can't get me if I don't eat. But it isn't enough. Somewhere in the hospital bowels a wail is sounding, and orderly feet are knocking over the tile to his door. They'll tie him down. They'll make him do it. Unless... He looks across the room to a low sink, weeping in the corner. A mirror hangs above it, a large crack grinning with plaster teeth from its face. It cuts him, though not enough to disguise the damage. He looks like a portrait by an old master, grown tired of the human shape and ready to see just how far it can stretch. Bulbous and broken, blue and black and bulging, but not near broken enough. There is still some shape to his nose, and his bloated lips still betray his greying teeth. A month, maybe 2, and all will be back in its place. No. Caleb stands. Beneath him the mattress shifts like ice on a spring lake, his head swimming with brown blood. He holds gaze with the mirror until the crease of its apex takes his eyes. It leaves only the shattered grimace, now fixed into a mask of certain, steady resolve. Fall. The door slams open a moment too late. The last thing he sees before the tile takes him is a pale-faced nurse, a doctor with a hand pressed to her mouth, and his mother, smiling that strange, lax smile. Splish, splash. Splish, splash. There is only the dark and the slow. All the world has gone to treacle, warm as liquid sunbeams, thick as sleepless death. Caleb tries to think through it all, but he finds he cannot recall enough of himself to begin. He falls back to the treacle. Splish, splash. Splish, splash. Not dark. Not light either, but this time it is with a certainty not dark. Caleb shudders in the grey gloom and realizes with some small pride that he now knows his name and his task. Did I do it? He is too numb to be sure. He tries once again to raise a hand to his face, but the only answer is the faintest twitch and the ring of steel. They handcuffed me to the bed. That much he had expected after what he did to the nurse, but she should have listened. Though he hadn't said a word, she should have known something was wrong. It was her job to know. If he could have spoken, could have told her that she couldn't make him eat, that there would be no more way out for them, that they would find their nests and hives inside him. The feeding tube their all-making mother, their ever-spawning father. He had to stop her, and stop her he did. Whatever work they did after his second fall, they did it well. His head feels twice its usual size, and not only from the swelling. From what little he can catch in his peripheral, something has been wound about his face. Gauze, maybe, or plaster. Whatever it is, it has been cast layer after layer over his mouth, his nose, every inch of flesh aside from a thin sliver where his eyes peer through. Caleb swallows. He feels nothing in his throat. I did it. No feeding tube. He could weep with relief. No need to fear the crawlies and the creepers, the droners and the flutterers. He can finally sleep. Splish, splash. Splish, splash. If it weren't for that sound, What is that? Like a fish on a line shaking the last of the water from its scales. That patter on the surface, the countdown to oblivion. Splish, splash, splish, splash. He tries to crane his neck, but something has him bolted in place. Or perhaps he is more hurt than he thinks. What is that? A bedpan filling? His own, maybe? He shakes again, trying to suss out any feelings of cold iron on his bare back. And then he freezes. He feels it. Not a bedpan, no. Something higher. On his arm. Something thin and plastic and pulling at his skin. An IV. Of course they wouldn't leave me to starve. Of course they put one in. Desperation mounts and Caleb rocks, twisting every way he can against the restraints at his wrists, the restraints of his own body. He rocks and bends and groans, but the orderlies have learned from their mistakes, and he is caught so fast. Because an IV carries nutrients, sustenance, the barest, simplest shadow of food. Splish, splash, splish, splash. Dawn is breaking now, the mists of early morning peeling away in raw, bloody strands, dyeing the walls the pink of shepherds and sailors. The light is blinding, but not merciful. It does not shroud everything, nor do the tears Caleb begins to shed. Oh, Jesus! Beside his bed is a tall, thin stand. It glimmers clinically in the daybreak glow, shining like a raised sword by torchlight. Around it curls a narrow plastic tube, perfectly clear. It runs the length of the pole in a cursive hand from a point beginning somewhere in the pit of Caleb's left elbow. From there it leads up, and up and up, to a translucent plastic bag hanging from a small hook. Inside is about a quarter-liter of clear liquid, and inside the liquid, Caleb has never seen one in person. Plenty of times on television, of course, on those survivor shows or documentary supercuts maybe. Their legs flickering like licks of fire, their segmented bodies gleaming like bronze armor, their jaws twitching like guillotine blades. Splish, splash, splish, splash. Inside the IV bag, a centipede writhes. It curls like a serpent, snaps like a vice. Its dozen upon dozens of legs clawing at the plastic, at him. This isn't fair, Caleb thinks, animal terror refusing to let him look away. I did all I could. The centipede gives no answer. Rather, it seems to decide there is no escape from the bag itself. So it turns in the fluid, angling its antennae down, 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 down. Its many legs clench as it drags itself in slow, steady strokes towards the filter at the bag's bottom, to the hole that leads to the line that leads to him. From the bed, Caleb Moore watches, mummified, as a many-legged bones creeps from plastic into flesh, and tries in vain to scream. This episode was produced by Louisa Jane and written and narrated by M.L. Richards. This episode, I would like to thank you, the listener, for making it through what is probably the most grotesque thing I will ever write. Sorry about that. Enjoy your supper. Follow our socials in the show notes. And thank you for listening. Until next time, good night, North Star.